Chapter 9. Supplier and Employer Duties. Suppliers and Hazard Communication. Suppliers are the first link in the WHMIS chain of communication. They are responsible for accurately identifying the hazards of the products they sell or import, and for providing the necessary information downstream to employers. This is usually accomplished through the provision of SDSs along with hazardous products and written notices through mail or email or at the time of purchase. Suppliers. A supplier is any person or organization that, in the course of business, manufactures, produces, processes, packages, labels, imports, or sells a hazardous product intended for use in a Canadian workplace. Any person who is not the end user of a product and is passing the product on to another person is a supplier. Products covered. The duties of suppliers apply to most hazardous products intended for use in a Canadian workplace. However, the WHIMS legislation outlines specific exemptions where these supplier duties do not apply. These exemptions include products like consumer products sold to the general public, wood and products made of wood, tobacco and tobacco products, and manufactured articles that do not release hazardous substances. Understanding these exemptions helps clarify the scope of WHIMS and when its specific supplier requirements are triggered. Supplier duties. Supplier duties are clearly defined by law. They must classify their products according to the Hazardous Products Regulations, HPR, prepare and apply a compliant supplier label, prepare and provide a compliant safety data sheet, and update the label and SDS within 90 days of becoming aware of any new significant hazard data. Classification. A fundamental duty of the supplier is to properly classify a hazardous product. This process must be carried out in accordance with the specific hazard classes and categories outlined in the Hazardous Products Regulations, HPR. Suppliers cannot classify products arbitrarily. They must assign a hazard class and category based on available scientific test data, literature, and evidence. This rigorous, science-based classification is the critical first step that dictates all subsequent hazard communication. Supplier label requirements. The supplier label is a standardized document that must be applied to the container of a hazardous product before it is sold or imported into Canada. The required elements on a supplier label are strictly defined and must include the product identifier, initial supplier information, pictograms, a signal word, either danger or warning, hazard statements, precautionary statements, and supplemental information if necessary. This consistency ensures that every worker sees the same type of information presented in the same way, regardless of the supplier. Safety data sheet creation. Suppliers are legally responsible for preparing and providing a compliant safety data sheet for each hazardous product they sell or import. The SDS must be provided at the time of sale or prior to the first shipment and must be provided to anyone who requests it. It is the employer's duty to then add this SDS to the workplace's SDS collection, for example, an MSDS binder or digital system, and ensure all employees know how to locate and access it. SDS updates. Suppliers have an ongoing duty to keep the SDS current. They are legally obligated to update an SDS within 90 days of becoming aware of any new significant information about the hazard of the product or changes to its formulation. This ensures that the hazard information in the workplace is always reflective of the most current scientific knowledge. Employers must then obtain and use these updated versions. Confidential business information, CBI. Suppliers are permitted to withhold certain specific chemical identity information on the SDS if they have applied for and received a claim for exemption under the confidential business information provisions. This is to protect a supplier's legitimate trade secrets. However, the process is regulated and the information must be disclosed to a health professional in a medical emergency. All other hazard information must still be fully disclosed. Training responsibilities. While suppliers provide the foundational information through labels and SDSs, the responsibility for training workers falls to the employer. Suppliers must provide accurate and complete information to enable employers to develop and deliver effective, workplace-specific WHIMS education and training. This training should be conducted regularly, with many workplaces establishing a schedule for refresher training at least once a year to ensure knowledge remains current. Enforcement. Compliance with WHMIS supplier requirements is monitored and enforced by Health Canada under the Federal Hazardous Products Act. In the workplace, employer compliance is enforced by provincial and territorial occupational health and safety regulators, such as the Ontario Ministry of Labour. The Joint Health and Safety Committee, or Health and Safety Representative, also plays an internal role by noting potential issues, reporting concerns, and ensuring the employer is implementing the program effectively to protect workers. Conclusion. In conclusion, the effective flow of hazard information in WHMIS relies on the clear and distinct responsibilities of both suppliers and employers. Suppliers bear the initial duty to correctly classify hazards and provide accurate labels and SDSs, while employers are responsible for implementing this information within the workplace through training, proper labeling, and maintaining accessible SDSs. This chain of communication is fundamental, and compliance by both parties is legally enforced to ensure the system functions as intended to protect worker health and safety.